the big question that in a lot of people's mind is like, who's left the cave and who hasn't? People are in this cave, sort of psychologically chained there. They can leave at any time, but they don't know that. The point was, what are you being hypnotized by? How are people getting you to not go live life? Because you are so caught up in this narrative. You're so caught up in whatever is being presented to you as reality. You don't even know that you are effectively watching two-dimensional stories in front of you, as opposed to living a full three-dimensional life.
Hi, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
So we did an episode a long time ago, Antonia, where we talked about that famous allegory, Plato, the cave, where the characters are in the cave, they see the shadows. We all know this from like philosophy class in high school or college, right? Where you're seeing the shadows on the cave with the fire flickering, and you're like, wait, this is just a projection of reality. This isn't the real thing. And then you leave the cave and you see reality for what it is.
I don't think everybody's aware of this.
What do you mean nobody's aware of this?
No.
That we recorded this podcast or this allegory?
No. No, I don't think you said everybody's aware of this. And I don't think everybody's aware of Plato's allegory of the cave.
Well, anyone that's ever had a philosophy class in high school or college probably is.
Yeah, but they don't teach philosophy in high school, and a lot of people don't take it in college.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't teach philosophy in high school? I was homeschooled, so I don't know that.
No, in fact, it's actually probably one of the gaping holes in the American education system is that we do not require children to learn philosophy in high school.
Well, that just explained a lot of dipshittery. Like I just realized something. Well, no wonder.
No.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's no philosophy course. There's no formal logic course. There's barely debate anymore.
And they call this education.
Yep. Yeah, actually, at least
whatever.
Approximately 20 years ago. I don't know if it's the case now, but I know that in France, you had to pass a philosophy class in order to graduate high school.
Okay.
And I remember thinking that is vastly superior to the American education system because we don't have to. I don't even think they offer it in high school.
Okay.
Maybe in I don't know, private schools or whatever.
Okay, well, let's lay the tracks down. Why don't you explain? Maybe let's get the formal Antonia Dodge explanation of this now. I was assuming a lot.
Yeah.
But let's go in deeper on this allegory then.
Yeah. I mean, people might have run into it on YouTube, but there's a fabulous YouTube channel called The Pursuit of Wonder.
Yeah.
And that dude has great philosophical concepts that are very accessible. And I think he's talked about Plato's allegory of the cave, which is the official term, Plato's allegory of the cave.
There you go.
And you did give a Cliff Notes version just now, but the concept is that there are people who are being hypnotized by images that are created. I mean, at the time of Plato, it's not like we had televisions at the time or anything.
Or TikTok.
Yeah. And so there was, he talked about how people are in this cave completely separated from light and from nature. And they're all effectively sort of psychologically chained there. Not physically chained. They can leave at any time, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
And as they're sitting there, there are people who are using images, like shadow images on the wall of this cave, backlit by fire, in order to keep people, again, hypnotized by entertainment or narrative or story. And the point was, what are you being hypnotized by? How are people getting you to not go live life? Because you are so caught up in this narrative. You're so caught up in whatever is being presented to you as reality that you don't even know that you are effectively watching two-dimensional stories in front of you, as opposed to living a full three-dimensional life. And the concept is that you leave the cave, suddenly you're in the light, suddenly you're in reality. And so the big question that in a lot of people's mind is like, who's left the cave and who hasn't?
Yeah.
We did a podcast on this, like you said, it feels like a million years ago. I think we talked about it 8-9 years ago.
I'm almost scared to go listen to it.
I will not be.
I feel like
I will not be listening to it.
I probably have changed so much from what I said in that episode and how I saw things then.
There are some episodes that I go back and I'm a little like, that's interesting that's where I was at that time period.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to something like that, I was probably just starting to understand it for myself. And now, who knows how many years later and how much life has been lived between then and now, I I suspect that I have a very different perspective on it.
I guess it brings up this idea of what does it mean to get a bigger perspective or a more accurate perspective or a wider perspective or a meta perspective. I think when you leave the cave, the allegory of the cave, or, you know, this allegory, you leave the cave, you're seeing things for more of what they are than you did before. And so let's put the allegory of the cave aside for a second, because we get hung up on the details and particulars of all that stuff, and just kind of ask the meta question now. What does it even mean to see a bigger world, a bigger frame? I look around and I think a lot of people would couch it as like the ivory tower. Like if I'm in the tower and I've really well studied and I have a vantage point of the entire world, like this is the archetype or the metaphor I see a lot of people say, I feel like I have a meta perspective on everything. I can see it for what it really is.
Sure.
I've been researched, I've been studied, maybe I've got credentials. I study deeply, I think about things deeply, and I've got a perspective above it all. And I guess you could say that, but I feel like that it doesn't feel as authentic to me in this. It's always been my perspective that getting out of the cave or seeing the perspective, like the meta perspective, like the more you're down in the guts of it, like the details of it, like your hands in the dirt, it feels like that really is the meta perspective. You've not just abstracted something. I think we often say that meta perspective is almost an abstraction of something, a pattern or intuition of something. But I feel like it's more tangible than that, weirdly enough. And I'm sure it's both, and you know, it's more, we're dipping into philosophy here, so there's no right answer.
Right.
But it's been my experience that I thought I had a good perspective on something until I had experience. And then boy, did that teach me a lot that I didn't know.
Yeah.
When I thought I had a pretty good meta perspective on it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the root of, or like the actual etymological definition of meta. And I almost want to say that it is like above or something. But that said, a real perspective requires, I think, both above and below in order to be complete. And so when you say, I think it's both, it's like, I mean, like that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the answer. The answer is it's both.
Yeah.
You have to both be able to have an experience or an experiential engagement with a concept, and you have to be able to see it outside of your experience, because our experiences are limited. And so in order to really truly get a full picture on something, I think you have to both be able to disassociate from one's own experience, but I think you also have to associate with your experience.
Yeah.
And see differences between what it felt like and what the experience of it was, but then also be able to, you know, like study, well, why did I have this experience?
Yeah.
And what was going on for me? And what were the things that I brought in order to color that experience? I think that's what, you know, like in order to be able to have a meta perspective, that's what you're doing, is you're sort of distancing yourself from the direct experience with it.
Or it's like looping back. So in a way, we have a former Personality Life Path mentorship student, Heather Brown, who actually works with us right now on our team. And I remember at one of the Personality Life Path events or something, she was in the student role. And so we were guiding through the 8 cognitive functions, and we have that 3-day live event at the end of that program where we kind of connect. So we audit your life and we find out where your energies are attuned to. But at the event, we kind of turn all that into a plan, a systems map of your life and a plan for what's next for you. It's really good for people in transition. And Heather was in some transitional moments, and she said, what I love, maybe it was actually at Personality Profiler Training she said this, but it was right after PLP. But she said, I really love type, and I think I've mentioned this before, because at first you get to see yourself. You get to see your personality and how you're wired. She has ENTP preferences. She's like, it's really cool because you get to see yourself kind of for who you are for the first time. And then you kind of look up from there, and especially at Profiler Training, because now I'm remembering, what was this context? She's like, here at Profiler Training, I'm training to basically see others now. Like I get to see and spot other personality types in the wild. Like I get to see other ENTPs, and I get to see other, you know, other personality types show up that are different than me. So I see myself, then I see others. And she said, then what happens is when I started to do my profiling sessions, like actual conversations with a client and doing the client work, I now get to see other people see themselves. So I got to see myself, then I got to see others, and then I got to see other people see themselves, like in a meta way. And that's what I'm reminded by talking about this kind of meta perspective. And in my life too, when I've watched other people discover, let's just take my type preferences, ENFP. I've watched either through conversation with me or somebody else, wait, I have ENFP wiring. It's like an interesting, almost like I learned something by observing somebody make the connections for themselves in understanding who they are for the first time.
Yeah.
From a different perspective now, because I already know who I am, but I get to see somebody else come to that realization. And it's very two-way. It doesn't really happen from an ivory tower from a distance. I have to be involved in the process to be able to observe that. It like colors the entire experience. And so I think that's kind of where I think that's what the value of personality type can be, in that we can both just kind of have it as a practical, useful tool, but also it gives us more of a philosophical viewpoint of ourselves and other people.
Well, the loop back on yourself piece is that, and I mean, this might be what you were saying, but when you see others see themselves, you can't help but then see yourself more.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then the process starts all over again.
Yeah.
And I think in personal development, we have a tendency to make it entirely about seeing ourselves, right? Personal growth and personal development. It's personal, right? It's me. It's my development and my growth. And so I think we do oftentimes keep it introspective and self-oriented. And I think that aspect of recognizing that we get a lot of stuff mirrored back to us by our relationships with others and their relationship to themselves.
Yeah.
Then we get an insight into who we are and how we operate and what's important to us. We get an insight in a way that we couldn't if we just keep it in-house.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know you said you didn't want to really focus in on this, but I kind of want to go back to that concept of Plato's allegory of the cave.
I'm willing to go there with you.
Well, I don't want to fillet it out too much. I just want to like reference back to it that the thing that I think of it as like differently now than I did before is I think, and I'm not sure which one it is exactly, but I think both of them might be true. The first one is that we exit Plato's allegory of the cave all the time, but we do it in different channels. Like in some ways, I feel like I have left the cave and I'm breathing fresh air and I'm seeing the light and I'm understanding life three-dimensionally. And in other ways, I feel like I'm still in the cave. I'm still being seduced into some narrative or into something that somebody else, like something that they are currently entertaining me around. And it might not be entertaining like in the way that like a sitcom is entertaining. Like it might not have a laugh track. It might be entertaining in the way that it's just seduced me into it as a narrative. And now I'm being controlled by this other person's presentation of a narrative. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think, to bring it back to the subject at hand, I think that seeing ourselves is basically really truly getting under whatever our narrative is of ourselves. Like we're based in some ways, we're our own cave. We're our own sort of puppet show that we're putting on for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we can't really escape our narrative of what we want to see. And so seeing ourselves truly is that part of leaving the cave of our own desired narrative, our own puppet show back to ourselves. Like, how do I want to see myself is very much a puppet show. How does my ego want to see itself? And I think when we go, oh, I feel like I'm really seeing myself for the first time, and then we start to see others in the same way that we've seen ourselves, right? In the same way that I've seen myself as a fully fleshed out person that's complicated with lots of different, I mean, when I think about a cave, I think of going inside and introspecting is to some extent like a spelunking experience, right? I'm soul spelunking. I'm spelunking myself, which doesn't sound right, but but hopefully it still carries. But it's like I'm
exploring myself. I'm exploring all the inner parts of who I truly am.
That's right. All the caves, all the parts of like even the scary bits or the things that I don't really want to see because they're wildly inconvenient, or I guess this is who I actually am as opposed to the thing I want to think that I am, and that could be called like Jungian individuation, bringing all these parts together, not disassociating from aspects because they're inconvenient.
Yeah.
Like being willing to bring everything to the table and try to find some harmony in all the discord. But regardless of whether or not you ever succeed in doing that, at least everybody's at the table, right? Like you are seeing all the parts of self. And if you start to see others, you're not just, I mean, when it comes to type, like you could reduce it down to simply somebody going, oh, I have ESFJ preferences, or I'm an ESFJ, or whatever, however the person would think about it. And then that means this and this and this and this. You know, you could think of that as seeing others. But the truth is you're not seeing others unless you're seeing them in the same way, not at the same level, but in the same way that you're seeing yourself, as a very complex, complicated, multidimensional, multifaceted soul creature, right? That is just trying to navigate the world with an astonishing amount of neural pathways, both already activated and also forming at any given time, and with a ton of potential, with all of these experiences that have like forged us and created us, and all these influences and all these choices and like timelines of, you know, where I'm at in the course of history and where I'm at in my own development and who I'm spending time around, and what the zeitgeist is telling me is like super important that I need to be focused on, and what the zeitgeist is actually not even presenting to me as something that I should be thinking about. And when we see this is one of the reasons why we tend to have, and this is very much a cognitive bias, we tend to have like all the sympathy in the world for ourselves and our choices, because we understand that it's complicated.
I know the exceptions.
Right.
Like I know why I did that and why I need to have an exception to the rule for me.
Yeah.
Because of what I'm going through. It makes sense.
It made sense to me at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when we see others, it's not just going like, oh, they're this type, so now I know them. Seeing others means they're a complicated amalgamation of all of these different aspects of themselves too. They are also the sum total at this moment, or the emergent property of a very complicated system of experiences and neural pathways and genetic predispositions and blah, 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 and people they're hanging out with and influences and moments in the timeline of existence, as well as their own development. I mean, it's like, to see others means that you have to take into consideration as much texture in them as you do yourself. And so to see others means that you are by definition way, way, way more understanding. Yeah. Way more understanding, in the same way that you're understanding of yourself. Well, it made sense to me at the time. So to see others means to see them as every decision that they're making makes sense to them at the time that they made it, with the information they were given. Now, a lot of times people take exception to this because they mean like, oh, are you sanctioning everybody's choices? And it's like, no, understanding and sanctioning are two totally different concepts, right? In fact, people sanction things all the time they don't understand. That's why they sanctioned them, because they didn't actually see everything that went into it. Yeah. And there is a way to understand somebody and have compassion and sympathy for them without sanctioning their choices at all, right? By recognizing that those choices are very poor and very destructive, but you can still understand. And so there's seeing others means not having that bias when somebody makes the wrong choice or thinks in a way that you don't agree with, or has different value sets, or whatever it is that is personally offensive to you. It means going, but I understand that they're complicated. Yeah. I recognize that there's a lot to take into consideration, in the same way that I'm complicated. I recognize that they're imperfect in the same way that I'm imperfect, right? That's actually seeing others. And recognizing that there are parts of them that are out of the cave, so to speak, and parts of them that are still in the cave. Parts of them that might very much have choice and sovereignty and see a bigger picture, and parts of them that are still doing a puppet show for themselves, or being hypnotized by other forces.
So I think that's the utility of personality type. It gets away from dumb stereotypes and dumb ways of sorting other people. Because I think we all have some type system. We all have some way we sort personalities and people in our lives. People do it by really, really dumb ways, like skin color or culture or socioeconomic status, or like these are really non-sophisticated ways of trying to like understand how people group together and
the most
how they
shallow versions.
Very shallow. I mean, they're there for a reason, because we want to sort, to understand, it's just too much complexity of humans. So we try to sort them. But I think personality types brings it down to an operational level of like, what's the cognition of the person? Not topically and not character qualities, although you could sort people by virtues and things, but it's just, what's the raw operating system this person's using? And can I just see them for who they are on the operating system?
Well, if we let it, it does that for us.
That's what I mean. It's available to us.
Yeah, because the personality type can be its own other incredibly shallow way of sorting people. Yeah. If we believe stereotypes and we go, oh, you're this type, that means a bunch of other things that it may or may not mean at all. But it gives us an availability to at least go, skin deep, not skin deep.
Yeah.
Like now we're at least trying to get into somebody's cognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, if you look at that level, I think a lot of things make more sense than if you look at the stereotypical level. And then we've talked about that on previous episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I have more to say.
Please continue.
So the other thing I was going to say about Plato's allegory is, and I said I'm not sure which one it is, but I think it might be both. The first one is it's different channels, right? In certain channels, I have sovereignty of thought. I have a perspective that isn't a hypnotized perspective. I'm not necessarily following somebody else's lead. And in other ways, I still very much am.
Do you think we could map that to cognitive functions? Do you think you could just say, I mean, for the sake of argument, do you think we could just say, well, there's like 8 different channels and some of those are more out of the cave than others? Or do you think that's an inappropriate way? Yeah.
That's a whole conversation that I wouldn't mind having in this. But I have another thought that I was going to introduce.
Go ahead. I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to distract. I just my
No. I think that's
intuition
that's a valid question, and I think it is an assumption of learning personality types that we would jump to say, oh, the higher up my cognitive function is as a preferred function, the more I'm out of the cave, and I don't necessarily believe that's true. But I think that's an interesting thing to tag.
Yeah. Let's see if we get to it, but like keep on your train of thought.
The other way that the Plato's allegory of the cave can show up is almost like the Matrix. And if you haven't seen the Matrix, I'm going to give you a spoiler, but it's like a 25-year-old movie, so get to step in, watch the movie. It's a great movie. But I think it's the second one. I think it's Reload that introduces this idea. But it's like basically once you leave the cave, you're actually in another cave.
Yeah.
Right. And once you leave that cave, you're actually in another cave. Right. Or maybe it was the third movie that introduced that idea. I don't remember. But it's effectively like, do we ever truly get out of being, to some extent, hypnotized by the narratives we want to believe?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I don't think we can know. I don't really think we can know. But the pursuit is noble. Right. The pursuit of not just accepting the first layer of puppet show is getting us closer and closer to an ability to understand our whole selves. So in Carl Jung's terms, whole self, which we can also call self with a capital S, whole self is only available if we stop being so vulnerable to what we want to believe about ourselves. And when I say vulnerable to that, I mean like we buy our own BS, basically.
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely want to believe that I see a bigger perspective than other people. Like, I mean, if I'm honest, I really want to believe that, okay, there's a lot of smart people, but maybe, and I probably put it down to a channel that I feel confident about. Like, I feel like, well, maybe not, I don't know what happens with the CIA or, some government stuff. I don't really see that perspective, but I can see, I have self-awareness better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Like I'm really out of the cave in my self-awareness. It's really something I have pride around, and other people think they're self-aware, but I really am.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually honestly have this self-talk in my own ego.
You and everybody else. That's what I love about you is that you're willing to represent the common person who like basically feels that way.
And I mean, I'm not kidding. Like when I say that, I'm not bullcrapping. I still think that like I see myself more deeply than somebody else does.
Yep.
And I can't seem to shake it. I really think that about myself. And then I go, well, that can't really be true. But I'm like, but it probably is. Because I probably really do. Like, it's almost like I can't get a handle on it.
Yeah.
I really believe it.
Well, my version of
Even though I kind of know it's not.
Yeah. Well, my version of this is I have collected so many models and so many systems of way of thinking. And I've gotten so into like things like systems thinking that I kind of know how things work. Right. Like I understand how a person works. I understand how a government works or how something works. As long as I can like put it through all these filters of systems and models in my head, I know how that thing works.
But even this conversation here, even me being willing to say it is a form of me doing it.
Absolutely.
And even that is a form of me, like, I'm doubling up on it by going, see how self-aware I am? I'm even self-aware of how self-aware I think I am.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
So it's like, I can't escape it no matter what I do.
And even me being on a podcast and talking about Plato's Allegory of the Cave and introducing a bunch of models is me doing it.
Yeah.
Me going like, okay, everybody should be like matched up to my models because this is how it actually works, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, absolutely, 100%. And that's why you're out of the pot and into the flame, right? You're out of one cave and then you enter another cave. Yeah. And here's the thing, though. I do believe that when you could almost see like the first cave is the center one. And if we get out of that one and popped into a second cave and we're like, we're free, we're out in the sunlight, everything is great, right? No, it might just be like this one has like light bending stalactites or something, like
a mirror that,
right, or a mirror, right? like it tricks you into believing that you're there, but you actually have taken in more territory, like legitimately, like you aren't just in the one cave, now you're in a second cave, right? And then if you get out of that one, you go, oh my gosh, I'm like, even then I was being trapped by all of these narratives and all of this, you know, all the things that people wanted me to believe, or I wanted to believe myself. And like, now I'm in a third cave. Do you ever actually 100% escape caves? Who knows? We can't know. That's the thing. Is like when the challenge with philosophy is that there's a reason why we've been like talking about the same concepts for thousands of years, is because there's not actually an answer. So then the question is there value in the pursuit, right? And then you get the next piece.
Or is there value in the paradox? Mm-hmm. I think the one thing I'm hunting for now is I'm not looking for the truth. I'm looking for a complete paradox.
Yes.
That to me feels like more truth than if I was to one or the other. It's like, I'm just trying to discover, what is this paradox?
Yes.
And if I could just understand the paradox, I feel like I've not gotten to truth, but I've gotten to something more than if I thought it was one side or the other.
Yes. As in, could you both be an aware person, a totally self-aware person, while at the same time continue to be hypnotized by narratives and stories? And the answer is yes, of course.
And I think you have to get used to that, because I think that's a deeply uncomfortable place to be. Mm-hmm. It's not comfortable to be kind of in the middle of a paradox and not come down on something on one side or another. If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for stand for something, you'll fall for anything, kind of. People will tell you that if you kind of just hold things loosely in paradox.
Yeah.
And so you have to, because other people won't like it, and even you won't like it. I don't like it. I don't like to be in paradox. I want to land on something. And so you have to kind of condition yourself to be okay with that.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite phrases that is totally unself-aware. Like, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, well, that just means you already fell for something. Like, I stand for something so I don't fall for anything. And I'm like, all it means is that I fell for something already, and I've just decided it's a better thing to fall for than like maybe something else.
Well, it also speaks to the fact that people don't like people that are in paradox. They don't like people that are wishy-washy and don't come down on something. I'd rather you be my enemy than just kind of sort of be my friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like sort of believe what I believe and also what the other people believe over there. I actually hate you more than if you just were my enemy directly. Then I at least know where to categorize you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that there's a little bit of that going on.
And the challenge with paradox isn't that it's wishy-washy. The challenge with paradox is that it doesn't give you default answers.
It's contextual.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is that it forces you to think through every situation, and it forces you to try to figure out, does this situation fall in this part of the paradox, or does it fall in this part of the paradox? And if I'm making decisions and I recognize it falls in this part of the paradox, I still have to take the other side of the paradox into consideration, even though it might not be relevant. It basically makes you do thought labor almost all the time.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge with that is that there's a high barrier of entry to any perspective or any way of seeing reality that requires a lot of thought labor, because you have to learn how to do it. Like the challenge with thought labor is that it's not easy. Right.
It's why we don't have millions of listeners.
Yeah.
This isn't sound bites. It's like we kind of try to unpack a topic, I think, and it doesn't really play well to audiences sometimes.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you said that, I was a little uncomfortable, because I'm like, oh, is that me saying that I'm doing a lot of thought labor, or you're doing a lot of thought labor? But the truth is that I just already claimed that I believed I understood how things worked, because I've collected all of these models and systems and ways of thinking about things. And so, yes, I mean, if I'm going to be honest with myself and not be hypnotized by the narrative that I'm a humble person and modest, and I'm not going to assert that I'm good at something that I may or may not be able to stand behind, I'm like, well, that's just my story. That's me doing a puppet show in front of myself.
Yeah.
Right. Of I want to see myself in a certain way. And so I'm going to go ahead and go yeah, that's the puppet show. That's the thing I want to believe about myself. But the reality is that I do believe that I do a substantial amount of thought labor. And I have a reason and a narrative for why, because I was very much in a very tight, small cave where I got my marching orders and I was not allowed to think outside of the narrative. And so going from one cave to the next, whatever that was, and this is why I believe that the expansiveness is its own, it has its own value. is basically I felt like my brain was in a vice, and then I had to teach myself to reprogram my own mind in order to get like to the next cave. And I'm not saying the next cave is like freedom and liberation and there's no challenges there. It just wasn't so, like the territory is definitely expansive. It's definitely more. And because of that, it means that I taught myself to do, or at least I recognized that the reason why I was so psychologically chained to a wall in that very narrow way of seeing reality is, yes, I was indoctrinated into it. But the second thing is because I had not done sufficient thought labor to be able to see my way out of it. Because it's not like people weren't leaving, right? Like I grew up with people who left as teenagers. Why did they leave and I didn't?
You mean the particular faith paradigm you grew up in?
Yeah, the religion I grew up in.
Not the cave in general, but you're talking about a specific paradigm.
Yeah, the cave representing a specific paradigm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Other people were leaving as teenagers, and I didn't leave as a teenager, and at that point, I probably should have.
Well, and you probably thought you were seeing a better perspective than them.
100%. 100%.
Like, I see it from above. I know it all.
I know it. How could you leave? Clearly, this is truth, right? And so I taught myself to do enough thought labor to remove myself from the situation, but then I had to do a substantial amount of thought labor just to be able to have like any paradigm, any way of saying things. And so because of that, I with probably less self-consciousness than I have, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a sufficient amount of self-awareness and self-consciousness. Yeah, absolutely. I do think that this is a place that people go for thought labor, right? To particularly this podcast. And thought labor just being like the willingness to not settle on easy answers, the willingness to take something apart and really see it for all of its different, aspects.
Yeah.
Separate myself from what I want to believe is true, from my personal biases. See it, continue to think about it and define it and to articulate and express and chop it and slash it and put it into all these different little segments until the thing cannot be reduced anymore.
Yeah.
And go, okay, that's a principle. And so, and so that is definitely something that I feel is very important, and that people, nobody really teaches you to do it. To go back to all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah,
we don't teach philosophy in high school. We don't teach formal logic. We don't teach.
Feels like that's the only thing we should teach now, because the topics are going to change. I mean, math is going to always be math.
Yeah,
but we've got machines for that now, and AI is going to help with a bunch of like processing of information. Mathematics and information, but we're going to need to know how to be human.
Yeah.
And we're going to need to know like how to think clearly, especially as like AI starts shaping our thinking. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to go, okay, this is my thoughts separate from the influence I have with this relationship I have with this entity that's not even a human usually, or it's not going to be a human.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that high school doesn't, I don't think the school system's long for this world anyway. In its current form, something's got to be reformed in its structure. Regardless
of whether or not you agree with the topics, schools in general have become quite focused on indoctrination.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that every school is indoctrinating the same thing.
That's right.
But there is a lot of indoctrination that's happening.
More religious than educational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I say religious, I mean like a secular religious. Like it's very like think this way, be this. It's like socializing you. Social conditioning. Social conditioning. That's what you're saying. Schools have become education system at this point, at least under even college, I think.
No, totally college. College is actually
it's all about social conditioning and social engineering.
Yeah, college is maybe even way worse than high school.
Or a reaction to the social engineering or social.
That's exactly
it's like just reaction or counter reaction or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, did I hijack you from the cave points you were making? Because we got down a little topic here. Sideline.
No. I did get to say the other thing, which is the second piece, which is like it's Matrix style, which is like you leave the cave and you're like, I'm free, and then you're like, oh, actually, I might be in another cave.
Yeah.
And I think that's the paradox is that in the search for truth.
Yeah.
We have to recognize that we don't actually get to know what truth is. We can approximate it.
It's the pursuit of it.
It's the pursuit of it, right? Like we don't. There are answers that are simply unavailable to us at this time, and might be forever. Might never be available to humans as long as we exist. But the paradox is that it doesn't matter if you get final answers. You still need to be looking. You still need to be searching. You still need to be doing the thought labor. That's the paradox.
So do you think we could wrap up this conversation by going back to my question around, you were saying different channels are like in our lives, maybe part of me is seeing a bigger, broader perspective, a meta perspective, but the other part of me is still very much just watching shadows on the wall.
Right.
So, and I posited the idea, well, let's look at it from a Jungian framework. Let's talk about the 8 cognitive functions that Carl Jung talked about, that Myers-Briggs is built on top of, the Myers-Briggs system. Could you look at it through those 8 lenses and say, okay, you know, in somebody could say, yeah, my physicality, my extroverted sensing, anything that's tuned into that part of the world, I feel like I've got a meta perspective on that, a lot of experience. I don't think it's just shadows on the wall. I think that part of me is very much out of the cave, or at least in the next cave or whatever. I'm seeing a broader picture here, but there's part of me that, I cannot see. I think it's still one-dimensional. Or would we not even have, as people, that kind of awareness of ourselves? Like, that'd be a lot of self-awareness and nuance. Or what, I mean, how do you said, you're like, I don't think it's a one-to-one. Or when you said different parts of ourselves, were you thinking, I was thinking functions when you said that. That's what I was coming up with. Like, oh, she probably is meaning functions, but were you?
When I said that there are different channels.
Yeah. Were you thinking topics? Like relationships?
I think it can be topical. I think the easiest way to understand different aspects of life is by the functions.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily reduced down to them, but is a very easy map or topography to be able to communicate different channels and aspects of life. So that is absolutely, like, it is one system or one way of seeing this topic. And I think it's a totally appropriate to reduce it just down to it, I think is limited.
Of course.
But I think it is it's
a good map.
I think it's a perfectly acceptable map. So I guess the question is, if a function is more preferred, or okay, let me at least see if I understand your question, and by repeating it back to you, and see if this is basically what you're trying to insinuate. If a function is preferred, then we are more likely to not be tricked into like narratives that hypnotize. We're more likely to be able to get out of the cave, so to speak, if it's a preferred function. Like, take, for example, a driver or dominant function. You and I both shared extroverted intuition or exploration as our dominant or driver. So does that mean that anytime it comes to like real-time pattern recognition and being able to understand how these things work and the connections of everything and taking, you know, like a sort of understanding the implications of something and all the possibilities, are we less likely to be trapped in a cave, so to speak, around our intuition than we are, say, around a sensing function?
Let me clarify my thinking here to answer that, or to play with it. Like, there's another concept of like a fish in water, where a fish doesn't realize it's in water because its entire reality is in water. It's its bathroom, it's its food source, it's its navigation system. It only knows water. I guess if it goes out of the water and it dies on the ground, I guess it would, whoa, this isn't my normal environment. But a fish usually is just in water. It lives and dies there, and it never knows anything different. Like, that's what people, we've talked about this before. So when we talk about the allegory of the cave, are we experiencing it like a fish in water, that this is reality, and this is just I don't know that I'm not in a substance of this, or I don't know that I'm in this framework? Or am I correlating to, because that's how I'm representing in my own head, and I would ask for you to clean slice that. Can I see it conflated like that, or do you have a way to slice that out?
Yes, I think the whole point is that it's very fish in water. The whole point of the allegory of the cave is that you don't know any better. You don't know that these images, these shadow puppets that are being projected against the wall, you don't know that it's not real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then with that refined thought, then I would say, actually, at least experientially for me, I probably am more vulnerable with that dominant or driver function to not see a bigger perspective. And not because it's the quality of it is not what I'm taking to fact.
Right.
I'm just taking positional. It's a fish in water for me. I move through the world expecting that intuition is the best tool for the job in all moments. Like, I cannot walk through a hardware store without patterning. I'm not just observing the facts of the hardware store. I'm like patterning the meaning of things constantly in real time and comparing and contrasting. And I'm assuming everybody's doing the same thing. So when they're like looking at me, I'm like, oh, what? Like, I'm trying to pattern what they're patterning about me, and I'm patterning what I'm like. It's all patterns, and I'm trying to do this all the time. And it's even now. I've been doing type since like for over 15 years. We've been doing this forever. We've been talking about this. I mean, I know better. Like, when I really stop and I know better, but in the midst of life moving, I get frustrated with people that aren't patterning as fast as me, or they don't see it the way I see it. Like, how do you not see this? And I'm like, oh wait, yeah, I guess they're a different type. Like, even as much as I know, I still get caught up in it. So I feel like I'm more vulnerable to my dominant driver because it's the fish of water. It's the world I swim in. I can slow it down and get a perspective outside of that. But that would take a lot of work every single moment of every single day to constantly be pulling back from it. I'm in it all the time. So it feels like it's more accessible for me to see things like that, have distinction of the cave and the fish in water when it's lower down in my personality. Personally, that's my experience.
Well, I think also Plato's allegory is about how much power you're handing over to the world around you. I think I think another way of saying this is...
So maybe fish in water is not the best way to see it then.
Yeah, it's
it throws me down that line of thought.
I mean, maybe one of the best ways to communicate Plato's allegory of the cave in contemporary language is like people that really believe that whatever they're reading on social media is a pure, like an accurate representation of what's going on in reality.
Yeah.
Like, that's the puppet show. The puppet show is like whatever's in the zeitgeist and whatever's being presented to you by social media and whatever's in your personal algorithm feed or whatever's on your wall. And you're just being hypnotized by these narratives that are communicating certain ideas to you. And the challenge, or the real challenge, is that other people are actually they're programming you while this is happening. And so I think that's Plato's allegory. I took it one step further earlier in the conversation by saying, I think we're doing that to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think we're actually self-programming in inauthentic ways for our own personal agendas, particularly our ego. And so one way to see this a little clearer might not be in terms of specific functions, but more in terms of archetypes that those functions fill.
There we go.
So as opposed to seeing it like for you with the ENFP preferences, extroverted intuition, exploration, introverted feeling authenticity, extroverted thinking effectiveness, introverted sensing memory, and then all down for the 4 shadow functions. A better way of saying it is like hero, parent, eternal child, for you, anima, right? And going like, okay, which of these functions are the most susceptible to outside programming, and which of these archetypes are most susceptible to my own programming of myself?
Yeah.
Like, which one's most associated with ego? Which one's most associated with like sort of handing my sovereignty or my brain wattage over to other people? And so archetypally, I would say the hero is the most likely to buy its own BS. And you talked about your intuition being a fish in water, but it's like, it's also, I think we've done podcasts on this before. I'm afraid I don't remember which episodes, but Dr. John Beebe talks about how anything he doesn't use the car model, but like anything on the left side of the car model, so the driver and the 3-year-old, he calls it the axis of relating to self. I think we talked about this in the self-love podcast.
By the way, if you want to know about the car model, personalityhacker.com/car model. We got a bunch of information about that online.
Yeah, exactly. And then anything on the right side of the car, so the co-pilot 10-year-old or auxiliary tertiary, is the axis of relating to others.
Yeah. So
your dominant and inferior, or your driver and 3-year-old, this is like, you could almost see it like these are our functions for that. That's my function for me. Mm-hmm. So you're most likely to buy your own stuff there. You're most likely to do sort of self-reinforcing narratives. And for your hero function, because it has such a high degree of certainty and it wants to believe things about itself, just like heroes do, right? Okay. Like in the same way where, the hero doesn't want to think that it caused $4 billion worth of damage. It wants to think that it like saved, that bus full of kids, right? Like the hero is always trying to see itself as positively as possible. So your intuition in some ways is the most susceptible to your own programming around your awesomeness.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
So
for me personally, because that's my intuition. It's at the driver
and
or
me too,
dominant position.
Right?
Yeah.
Like my intuition's like, well, if I just collect enough models and systems,
it'll be fine.
Then I'll be able to navigate my way through literally anything and always be like the smartest person in the room or whatever my ego wants to say to myself.
Yeah.
So, and then archetypally, I would say, okay, so what is the function that's most likely to hand itself over to the outside world and be susceptible to programming out there?
Yeah.
And of those 4 archetypes of hero, parent, eternal child, and anima, the answer is eternal child. Like that function is designed to seek the outside world's approval and to be susceptible to programming. So the part of ourselves that's like watching the puppet show on the wall where other people can program us is probably whatever channel, right? A channel of life your eternal child falls into. For me, it's extroverted feeling or harmony. So I'm way more likely to hand my power over, my sovereignty of thought over, to be susceptible to programming from the outside world through my relational function, the one that wants to make connection and see myself as part of a community and be in rapport with other people and feel like I've got friends and people who support me and I support them.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely the story of my life. Why didn't I leave as a teenager? Well, because I would lose all of that. And so I left when I was old enough to let go of the child part of me.
So then I like this idea of going to the archetypes to kind of see how we show up in this and whether we can get susceptible to getting caught up in something.
Yeah, and we've done podcasts on the 8-function model and archetypes before.
Let me just play with this and just see, so let's say there's a woman who, let's say a woman has a hard time with her animus. So she is having a hard time with the more masculine part of herself. She's not accepting that part. That's that 3-year-old or inferior process. So so archetypically, we would look at somebody like that, maybe in coaching or in work or something where you're working with somebody. It's like they keep pushing away the smaller masculine part, and so then they're watching content or getting caught up in stuff that's like maybe demonizing men or demonizing the masculine, and it's like, yeah, and kind of following that line. And what you're saying is that's less about a type. It's more about maybe that archetype is out of balance or something.
Yep.
And that's just an example. I mean,
it
happens to men too on the other side.
Same thing with men on anima. And there's different ways that rejecting one's anima or animus can show up.
Yeah.
But you're basically following content that allows you to program yourself. Like it's serving your own agenda when it comes to that, because that's part of the axis of relating to self. And so that's me for mine. So if I'm following content that is fueling that part, you could say that I'm letting other people set a narrative or a tone, but actually all it's doing is serving my own desire of the narrative or tone to begin with. And for women, when a woman rejects her animus, it can look a couple different ways, but the most common is either they have zero assertiveness.
Yeah.
They have no libido to protect themselves or defend themselves or to stand up for themselves. They're kind of pushovers.
Vulnerable.
They're very, very vulnerable if they are completely rejecting their animus. And then the second way is that they become misandrous. And sometimes you find that in the same person, or sometimes it is actually two different people.
Yeah.
And so they hate men. And then some women are animus inflamed, right? And animus or you could almost call it animus possessed. And a woman who is animus possessed means that she's taking on too much of a masculine frame. Like she is asserting herself as if she these qualities are the only ones that she possesses, and she completely stamps down the feminine energy.
And by the way, somebody's gonna say right now, is there something wrong with all this, Antonia? They're gonna that's the inflection point, because you're maybe just hearing a soundbite of what you're saying. You're not saying you're not giving judgment to any of this. You're just saying this is what could happen, just in a descriptive way.
So basically, the phrase that I've picked up in Jungian psychology, and I mean not picked it up, I started to say this in echoing somebody else who's a Jungian analyst, but it's it's a problem when it's a problem.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's is being a misandrist? Well, I would say being a misandrist is just a problem. That's always a problem because it's a form of prejudice. And there are prejudices that are understandable, but that doesn't make them right. It's I can totally understand how somebody who's been horribly, horribly treated by any segment of people or demographic of people, or just has a major hard time with the demographic of person, it's human nature to develop a prejudice, but it still doesn't make it true, right? There are still individuals within any demographic that are not going to follow whatever pattern that you've been raised with. So to be entirely prejudicial is a problem. Right. It's because you're not treating people as people anymore. You're not seeing others in the same way that you're seeing yourself. You're seeing them as a monolith. You're turning them two-dimensional. And the reason why it's a quote unquote problem is because it's just not accurate. It's just not true. Right. So because individuals are individuals.
It's only a problem when it's a problem. I like that. I like that frame.
And so misandry is, I would say it's always a problem. Would I say it's a problem to not be able to protect yourself and roll over? Yeah, I would say that's a problem. You have to be able to defend yourself. Is it a problem if a woman is animus possessed? Well, it's a problem because it's a problem. That doesn't mean, I grew up as a tomboy. I'm very, I have kind of a sort of a bit of a masculine edge about me. I've never thought that was a major problem. But if I'm possessed by it, meaning that I don't have choice anymore. Right? The whole thing about being possessed is that you don't have choice, right? Like you've been possessed by an energy, like you can't get out of it. And I would say, yeah, that's a problem. So are characteristics that look similar? Like, is it okay if a woman is really feminine? Right? Which is different than not being able to stand up for yourself. But is it okay if a woman's like really feminine and gentle and nurturing and, you know, and evokes a protective nature in those around her, so she has a tendency to have people do protection for her? There's nothing wrong with that. Is there anything wrong with a woman being more assertive or more dominant or, you know, having more of like a masculine energy about her? There's nothing wrong with that. But if it is putting you in a situation where, well, I'll say this. If it's not true self, if it is not getting you closer to yourself with a capital S, then it's a misdirect. Then it's something that's not honest. It's a possession. It's an avoidance, or it's a, you know, it's like it's an attempt to not do real work. Yeah. And so it's only a problem when it's a problem. How do we know it's a problem? Because it's allowing you to avoid doing actual work, actual personal development, see yourself work.
Yeah. Yep. And to be fair, I mean, we have our own stuff going on too.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I could go into like a little,
I
could go into like a little
just flip all that over and
for men too. Like there's multiple ways that it shows up. And is it a problem? It's a problem and it's a problem, right? Like it's like the whole thing. And like, that's basically everybody. But to go back to this idea of, are you being programmed by the world if you're looking up content that's reinforcing this? Kind of. But you're actually, what you're doing is you're choosing, you already have a narrative. And you're just selectively choosing who's going to do the puppet show in front of you and to reinforce the narrative that you already want to believe. So it is really a form of self-programming. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, by the way, for playing with these ideas. I think that's useful to think about archetypically. I think at least as we're starting out, than just by personality type or functions. Because then we can start to get into like, I think what's nice about that is everyone has that same archetype kind of structure from a personality type standpoint. If you look at John Beebe's 8 archetype model, 8 function model, he uses the same archetypes, and all 16 personality types fit into those archetypes with a different flavor based on how their personality flavors that archetype.
Yep.
So I flavor my hero archetype with extroverted intuition, and so do you, because we both have the same dominant or driver.
Yep.
But my co-pilot or my auxiliary, I flavor with authenticity or introverted feeling. You flavor yours with introverted thinking or accuracy. So we flavor it a little differently, but we still have that parental energy attuned to it. So it's interesting to go to the archetype. And then I think what it helps us not do is say, well, you know, if you did it by the personality, you could say, well, intuitives see more patterns. So clearly they're going to be out of the cave more than a sensor would be.
Right.
And now we get into like the have and have nots of perspective or meta perspectives.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's not true at all.
Intuitives have meta perspective and sensors don't, because look, you know, and then if you bring it down to type, it actually possibly gives us a disservice in looking at these things.
Or sensors are more likely to have experience and they're more likely to be grounded. And so the intuitives are more likely to trick themselves into thinking that they're seeing something that they're actually not. And it's like, kind of.
So,
kind of. So, I mean, you need both sides. So effectively what you're looking for is somebody who holds paradox and is willing to see the other side of it, right? You need both halves.
I like that. And I think it opens up, I think it creates it helps us not get too static and get too defined. Like, oh, this type can get out of the cave, but that type can't.
Yeah.
I think that really, or this function can't get out of the cave. So that way, anybody that has this function is impossible for them to see a meta perspective, because that function can't escape the cave ever.
Yeah.
I think the archetypes are a much better way to sort it.
Well, and they also give us, I mean, it's not all bad news, right? I mean, the archetypes also give us a way to, and this is one of the reasons why I like that we intuitively from the very beginning developed the co-pilot.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't just intuitive, it was also experiential. I was like, oh, my introverted thinking or accuracy, my co-pilot function, my auxiliary, oh, that saved my life. And then I started seeing other people, it's the same, right? It saved their life too. And so so that's why I said that for a long time. But now that I'm in more archetypal Jungian work, I'm like, oh, this is why it's so important. And so of those archetypes, what archetype is associated with the co-pilot or the auxiliary function? And that is parental energy. What is the archetype that is least likely to fall for a narrative just because it wants to, if it's really truly stepping into maturity? And that is the parent. Now, parents fall into narratives all the time. I'm not saying that parents, like, there's plenty of ways to be a bad parent.
Yeah, about like actual parents.
Actual parents.
Not a metaphor. This is like a real parent.
Well, kind of understanding the archetype of the parent means understanding parenting.
Okay.
Right? In the same way that understanding the archetype of the hero means understanding heroes, right? Like, we kind of have to understand how, like, how do these show up? And then how is that related to my version of it, or the version of it that lives inside of me? And there's plenty of ways to be a terrible parent, right? You can be overindulgent. You can spoil your child. You can be neglectful. You can be abusive, right? You can be just inexperienced and immature and make a bunch of mistakes and realize that why don't they give us a test? Why don't they give us a way to try parenting first before we actually have to do the job? And it's like, well, it just doesn't work that way. So you make all your mistakes and you go, oh, I would be an awesome parent now. And now that my child is grown up. But what does it mean to be a good parent? And one of the things about being a good parent is that you have to be willing to be both a nurturer and a bad guy. You have to be willing to see things as they are. You have to be willing to step up and have difficult conversations.
But also see the possibility for your kid too.
But also see the possibility.
What is, but what could be.
That's right.
It's paradoxical. Again.
You have to be willing to be disciplined. You have to be willing to step up. You have to be willing to not be a hypocrite. But at the same time, you have to be honest with your kid, but not give them too much information that they're not ready for. It's like, it's just this constant, like, moving target throughout all of all of raising a child.
And just when you think you got them figured out, they grow up and change again.
They change on you, and you figure out a whole new iteration of all of this, right?
What a personal development project.
Parenting,
like just actual parenting.
It might be, if a person truly takes it on as a serious stewardship of another soul.
Yeah.
Right. If a person takes it on as like, it's my job to make sure that I don't just make more useless humans. And I'm not saying that that's a terrible way of saying it. It's like, I don't think the world is filled with useless humans.
Well, some of us are.
I mean, I think
I'm kidding.
I think
more useful than others. Let's put it that way.
I think we can be either contributors or takers. I think that's actually probably how I'd reduce it down, right? If we're serious about stewarding people into becoming contributors and not vampires, not taking, but actually contributing. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think the vampires are useless, but I think that they definitely, they're not at net zero, right? like at least try to shoot for net zero.
They certainly make romance novelists rich.
Right. What does that mean?
Vampires.
Oh, vampires. Yes, you're right. Yeah, exactly. And production studios. But that said, if we take our responsibility of stewarding this human seriously, then that means that talk about thought labor. It means that we have to be thinking all the time. We have to not be taking, we can't assume anything. We have to find our core principles. We have to be adaptable. We also have to be firm. We have to know what our values are. There are so many things that go into it. So if we are going to be a good parent, of all of the archetypes living inside of us, which one is the least likely to buy its own BS? And I think it's the parental energy. I think our parental energy is usually the first port of call to get us out of that initial cave that we're in. And it can either be through introspection. If you're an extrovert type, then your co-pilot or auxiliary, your parental energy is introverted. So that means to ensure that you're not getting stuck in the narratives, other people's puppet show. It means that you need to be introspective in a very specific way. It means that you need to process information or process feelings or process concepts or process your experiences better, right? Like you have to be doing some form of processing at an elevated level.
Yeah.
If you're an introvert type, it means your co-pilot or auxiliary or parental is an extroverted function. And that means that you have to get way, way, way more information, more experiential information. You can't just rest. You can't just be like, oh, I know. Right? It means that you have to be doing more. Rubber has to hit the road. You have to be interfacing the world way, way, way more and expanding your experiences. You can't keep them small. You can't keep them curated. You can't keep them just reinforcing whatever is already inside your mind. You have to be expansive in your experience. And so the first function, that hero function that wants to write itself, that wants to create its own little puppet show, its own little shadow puppet show in its own behalf, will sometimes bully that second function into keeping itself small or not doing what it needs to be doing. And it will it will encourage it to allow the world to seduce it into a narrative as long as it suits the hero. Does that make sense? It's like part of this whole allegory of the cave thing isn't because we're dumb and we're too stupid to see that other people are manipulating us. Part of the reason why we stay in the cave as long as we do is because it has a secondary payoff.
It serves us.
It serves us. That's right.
Like we're keeping ourselves there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we get to believe whatever we want to about ourselves. And it's really addictive. Man, It is so addictive to be able to think whatever you want to about yourself. And that second function goes, maybe we should reevaluate somehow, right? Maybe I need to be thinking about this a little. Maybe I need to be a little bit more introspective. Maybe I actually need to have more self-intimacy if it's introverted. Or maybe I should get out more. Maybe I should be having more experiences. Maybe I shouldn't be like letting my context curate or tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing, in terms of getting a broader like experience in the world.
Yeah.
And so the parent, by like when it's being a good parent, it separates from the hero's self-aggrandizement and then leans into a form of modesty and humility, which is what a good parent is. A good parent is modest and humble. And we have an archetype available to us that allows us to go expansive. So whether or not us leaving the cave means that we are exiting out into the sunlight and everything's great, or if it means we're just going to the next cave and the next cave and the next cave, so to speak, it kind of doesn't matter. It's the pursuit of not allowing ourselves to stay small just so that our ego can get off on it. And more expansiveness means, in a paradoxical way, right? Or maybe even in a counterintuitive way, more of that expansiveness means more self-intimacy by definition. And then it means that now we're on our way to finding self with a capital S. Yeah. Right? We see more of ourselves. So this idea to go all the way back to the seeing ourselves, seeing others, and then seeing others see themselves. The reason why that creates this beautiful feedback loop is the first thing is seeing ourselves means seeing how we are hypnotizing ourselves, right? And then to be able to understand a much broader perspective. Seeing others means, to some extent, seeing how they're hypnotizing themselves and having compassion for it, right? Like going like, well, I'm doing the same thing. So having compassion for how other people are being hypnotized and hypnotizing themselves. And then seeing others see themselves is them having an awakening moment, right? When they go, oh my gosh, right? I didn't know this about myself. Or maybe they do leave one cave and enter another. Or maybe they just have a moment of transformation or self-awareness or whatever. And then being able to observe that process and go, oh, that's right. I can have awakening processes too. And then we go back into seeing ourselves through this. And then it just turns into its own little feedback mechanism, which of expanding self-awareness. So
starting down the road of seeing yourself, I want to recommend that you come over to personalityhacker.com. We've got a lot of resources there. Obviously, we're talking about personality types, and it's seeing yourself first and understanding how you're wired, how you make decisions, how you learn information. We have a suite of 16 different owner's manuals for all the 16 different personality types in the Myers-Briggs system. And we talk a lot about the things we've talked about here, Antonia, like how do you hook up an ergonomic life for that driver or that hero part of you? And then how do you really tune in? This is where I think those owner's manuals can help a lot. There's some reflection and some journal and some elements to that to develop that co-pilot, to help you nurture that part of yourself, bring it out more, some activities based on specifically your personality type, because everybody's going to do it a little differently based on their type. Not all types are the same, clearly. That's why we talk about it this way. And so I think there's really a lot of value there. If you come over to personalityhacker.com, you can pick one of those owner's manuals for your type to get started down that journey. And then if you really, really want to go deep and examine your own life in a very nuanced way, we have a program. It's one of our flagship deep shadow work programs. It's called Personality Life Path. It's an 8-week virtual program. It ends in a 3-day live event. You can do that live event virtually or in person. I recommend coming in person because it's really powerful. But you create a systems map of your life. You tune into all the 8 areas and cognitive functions, and you do an audit of your life. Where do I, especially if you're in transition, where am I? Where have I been? Where am I now? And where am I going? And we help you create that map. It's been very powerful for our clients and students. They've loved it. It's changes. It's the see others see themselves every time we do it. I get to watch people go through this process over and over, and I learn so much about myself in observing people awaken to, oh my gosh, these 8 areas of life. I get so much out of the experience of guidance guiding somebody through this.
Yes, it is so powerful. It's my favorite thing we do.
Yeah. It's the heartbeat of what I think we want to bring to the world.
That's right. And the
it's
reason
limited,
why,
though.
yeah, but it's a limited seating. So every time we do it, like, it's, you got to get to 7, but, it absolutely it might be the thing that's taught me more about myself than anything else that I've, that's been like an offering to the world, like a program we've created or a podcast we've, recorded or whatever, book we've written.
Yeah.
This hands down is the thing that has helped me understand myself the most. And we're facilitating it. As a facilitator, it has taught me more about myself than anything else.
Yeah. And we talk about those archetypes. I mean, very specifically, we map those and we map your specific personality to the archetypes that are structured there. And we show how you flavor the archetype with your cognitive functions and your mentality, your mental processes.
Yep.
And I think that's very enlightening because you're like, oh, wait, not all the hero and energy in somebody is not the same for everybody. Like I have a particular version of mine that I bring to the world that I expect the world to reward and see as good. And that's what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And we all have a version of that. Yep. And just that alone, just tuning into those kinds of things, it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot of information that we can take away about how we're wired to see ourselves. So if you really want to go deep, I recommend if we're in enrollment time period for that, again, it's very limited because it's very high touch. We give personal attention to every single person in that class, in that cohort. And so we have a limitation on how many people can do it right now because it's not designed to scale and be big. It's designed to actually change your life. Yep. That's actually what it's designed to do.
Yep.
And help you with transitions. So check those things out over at personalityhacker.com, or you can also go to personalitylifepath.com if you want to check out that program directly. And anything other comments we need to make before we close this out? Any other last minute things, or should we just wrap this blessing up?
Yeah, I mean, this was a little bit more of an emergent, intuitive one.
Philosophical.
I don't know where we're going to head, but I think I feel complete.
Good. All right. Well, head over to personalityhacker.com, and while you're there getting your owner's manual or looking at the Personality Life Path, directly below this episode, we'd love for you to leave a comment, ask a question, or more importantly, share your story. Do you feel like you've had moments where you've gotten out of the cave, the allegory of the cave? Have you escaped? Have you seen aspects of yourself that you might have gotten a broader perspective? You're like, I think that part of me is still in that cave. It loves the flickering lights. Do you not buy this at all? You're like, this is a Plato. Who's that guy? I don't know about that guy. Or you're like, Joel, I disagree with you. Schools should never teach philosophy or critical thinking. I think it's good that we just indoctrinate and socially condition people. You can disagree there too. I don't know.
I saw a really funny Aubrey Plaza meme, and where the meme said, anytime a politician talks, but it was quoting her, I think probably from the show Parks and Rec, where she says, I didn't hear anything you said, but I strongly disagree with you.
That's basically our American politics at this point. That's on all sides.
That is, it might even be global politics. I didn't hear anything you said, but I strongly disagree with you.
Yeah. Fair enough. But come over to personalityhacker.com, make your voice heard.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or on various Android platforms. Leave a rating and review at Apple Podcasts. I read everyone, and I very much appreciate them. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. We have a video podcast. You might be watching it right now. And if you are, you can subscribe, and then hit the bell for future episodes. And you can also leave a comment underneath this video.
Yeah. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
And we'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker Podcast.